Hey YouTube, this is Chuck from Northern California. Today I'd like to do a presentation on this WEN 4212. It's a 10-inch variable speed drill press. I want to talk about a cabinet that I made for it and also some of the modifications. What I'm not going to do in this presentation is talk about unboxing, performance, things like that. There's a ton of videos on that. Really what I'm just focusing on is the cabinet itself and some of the modifications I made to this drill press. So at $185 or so, maybe even less, I think this drill press is really a bargain. Again, it's targeting the home do-it-yourself kind of hobbyist. I think it works just great. I like the features. I like the digital readout. It's a variable speed, although it's a mechanical variable speed. So that means that there's a pulley system that changes the position of the belt on a pulley that allows the drill press to operate at different speeds. And I think that works fine. I'm not finding any kind of vibration. It comes also with a laser. Some folks complained about the laser being battery operated. I'll talk about how I overcame that. Again, I think for the price and the features, it's a really good product and I'm pretty happy with it so far. In this picture, you could see the cabinet that I built for it. I built a cabinet with an MDF top and bottom. It's painted to match the WEN drill press color, that bright orange. I also picked up a couple of WEN decals on eBay, and I mounted it on a Bora mobile base. If you notice, I mounted the base in a way where the levers are actually facing the back of the drill press. Unfortunately, because of the design with the drawers down below, in order for the drawers to open up correctly, I had to mount the base, I guess you'd call it backwards. Works fine though, so again, not a big deal. Again, I like the fact that I can move it around the shop here. This picture shows the base again, sort of the front view. Again, it's 4 drawers and plenty of storage for all of my drill press needs. Here we have a picture of the drill press with the drawers open. These are full extension drawer glides. This is where the expense began to add up. I think the drawer glides, each one was $20. So there's about $80 worth of drawer glides right there, plus the material. Ironically, I think the cabinet ended up costing me more than the drill press itself. Some design of the drawers. I like working with Baltic birch. It's a very stable material, cuts great. There's no voids, unlike the cheap junks you might get at some of the big box stores here. You might need to go to a specialty lumber yard to get Baltic birch, but it's well worth it, especially if you're going to do things like jigs or drawers, things like that. Again, I think Baltic birch is the way to go. Here's another design picture. You could see the back of the drawer. I just like these kinds of joints. It's much stronger as well. This is the base that I purchased from Bora. It was the PM 1100. It seems to be really heavy duty, so pretty happy with the base. As I said, the only consideration here is that I had to mount the levers in the rear of the drill press itself in order for the front drawers to open up. But again, not a real consideration. The drill press comes with a standard keyed chuck. It's a 1/2 inch chuck. I purchased this chuck here. It's a keyless chuck from Amazon. I like the fact that this is up to 5/8, so it's a little bit larger than the 1/2 inch chuck. And again, the fact that it's keyless, I think it works much better. Um, nice and smooth, seems to be very well machined. So again, happy with this purchase. Again, added another $35 to the price of the drill press itself. But again, I like the feature of the keyless chuck. Another consideration here, I think this is somewhat interesting. One of the complaints that some folks had was the fact that the laser beam is battery operated. And again, if you like the laser beam, fine. If not, it's not a consideration for you. But again, one of the negatives is the fact that the laser beam uses batteries. So I purchased this small AC DC power supply. It's a Meanwell power supply, and it takes 120 volts and then outputs 3.5 volts. This worked great, and what I did was I just wired the 120 volts that comes into the drill press itself, into the power supply, and then outputted the 3.5 volts down below to the battery box. So I eliminated the battery and now wired 3.5 volts directly to the laser. Worked out great. Also, I added a light to the drill press as well. And rather than have the light plug in with a separate cord, I also wired that light into this power supply. I just connected that light into the 120 volts that were coming in here. Again, this is the power supply. It comes from a company called Meanwell. I think this power supply was all of about $10 or so. This is a picture of the light that I mounted. It comes with a magnetic base. And again, rather than running a separate electrical cord, I just wired this light into the AC connector up on top by the power supply itself. Another noteworthy feature, and I picked this idea up from one of the YouTube folks that also did some modifications to this WEN drill press. I ran the power cord of the drill press down below the actual um, shaft itself, out the back, and again, it just seems to be a little bit more of a cleaner design. This is the light that I purchased from Amazon. Again, pretty inexpensive, $10. It's a really bright LED light, and again, it's not really heavy duty, but for the home hobbyist, I think it works great. And here, as you can see, what I've done here, this is a picture of the light mounted on the side of the drill press with the keyless chuck. Works great for me. Another feature that I added to it was a digital depth gauge. And what I did was I just fabricated out of a piece of aluminum a small bracket that mounted to the collar of the drill press, and another bracket up on top, just an L bracket. Picked up a cheap Harbor Freight digital caliper, cut it up a little bit into some pieces, and literally just glued it on to these aluminum pieces using JB Weld Plenty Strong, and it allows me to get fairly precise drilling in terms of the depth of drill. Again, it's probably accurate within, I don't know, 100th or 1,000th of an inch. Plenty accurate for anything that I'll be doing here. As you see, here's an example of digital caliper you can pick up from Harbor Freight, but with a coupon, you could probably get this for, I don't know, $10, $12, maybe less. I also want to talk about the design of the cabinet. So a lot of folks will build a cabinet by picking up some plywood, cutting up sides and top, and just kind of slapping together a box. I don't like that technique for a couple of reasons. In order to buy a really high-end 4x8 sheet of plywood, where it's, I don't know, maybe hardwood veneered, right, oak or birch or something like that, you're probably paying $50, $60 for a sheet of plywood. I use a technique where I build a carcass out of MDF. I start with 3.5 inch um, rails and stiles, I guess you can call them, and use a stapler to actually join the material together. I think one of the problems with working with MDF is that it's very difficult to join. It's prone for cracking. The joints aren't very strong. If you use things like pocket holes, it doesn't seem to work very well. But I picked up a tool made by Bostish. It's actually called a pallet stapler. And as you can see here, it provides the ability to quickly join the material together, creating the sides and the back. Once the sides and the backs are built using this technique with these staplers, then I simply join the material together, countersink some screws, glue, and this carcass itself is actually very strong. It's actually lightweight. I then will coat it with some 1/4 inch plywood, which could be fairly inexpensive. You could probably get 1/4 inch plywood for certainly maybe $15 a sheet or so using this Wellwood cement. You can see here I just cut it to size here, apply um, the glue, the contact cement, and join it to the cabinet. And you can see sort of how the cabinet's taking place here. Take my router with a flush trim bit and just trim it, and it works out great. Again, it's a nice strong cabinet, fairly inexpensive to build, maybe a little more time consuming. Um, but again, I like the fact that it's lighter. You can move it around, and I really like the look and the finish itself. Here are the drawer glides installed in the cabinet. And lastly, this is the completed cabinet itself. So all in all, I think this was a fun project. As I said, I probably went all out on the cabinet. As I said, spending more money on the cabinet itself than the drill press. But again, speaking of the drill press, really summarizing the drill press, I think for under $200, it's a bargain. If you want to make some enhancements like I did, you could certainly address some of the features easily. You could add the keyless chuck. You don't need to do anything with a laser or run wires and things like that. You could just simply, attach the light, the magnetic light, and that'll work fine for you. Again, I think I went overboard with it, but again, I think it's well worth it. And hope you enjoyed this. And if you decide on purchasing this WEN drill press, I think you'll be pretty happy with it. Take care.